tonight on NewsCenter. New revelation by the South Korean government. Two senior North Korean officials, including an army colonel specializing in espionage against the South, defected to South Korea last year. Ministers of G7 countries single out North Korea for sharp criticism, on top of saying its provocations make push to abolish nuclear arms harder. And as the parliamentary elections in Korea enter the home stretch, rival parties step up appeals for support on their home turfs, with pundits saying the race is becoming even tighter in many electorates. NewsCenter begins right now. It is 9 a.m. in Washington, 2 p.m. in London, and 10 on a Monday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. We reported last week that 13 North Koreans arrived together in South Korea in one of the largest known group defections of North Koreans in recent years. Now, within days, we're learning today of more defections from north of the 38th parallel. The Seoul government has revealed that a colonel belonging to Pyongyang's spy agency recently came to the south seeking asylum. He's one of the highest-ranking North Korean military officers known to have defected in recent decades. Our Connie Kim finds out whether the latest episodes could be a telltale sign of instability in the Kim Jong-un regime.
South Korea confirmed Monday that a high-ranking officer from North Korea's military intelligence agency defected last year. Seoul's Unification Ministry did not elaborate further, but the confirmation is significant, as the North Korean colonel is the highest-ranking official ever to have defected south. The North Korean military's General Reconnaissance Bureau, where the colonel worked, is believed to be responsible for the landmine explosion in the demilitarized zone last year. Seoul also said that a North Korean diplomat who was posted in Africa defected to South Korea with his family last May. These revelations follow Seoul's announcement regarding last week's mass defection of 13 North Korean restaurant workers. Pressure to send cash back to Pyongyang amid tough UN sanctions and a yearning to live in a free society apparently influenced the North Korean workers to seek political asylum. But considering that the high-level North Korean officials defected last year, many experts say the cases reflect instability in the North Korean regime.
Politically, Kim Jong-un's reign of terror has left many North Koreans in a state of unease. On the economic front, North Korea's economy is on a decline while its black market continues to grow.
Experts add that instability in the regime, in addition to pressure on North Koreans overseas, will likely contribute to additional cases of defections to the south. This as Pyongyang prepares for its first party congress in 36 years next month. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, the North Korean regime seems rattled after 13 North Korean restaurant workers defected to South Korea last week. Various reports, although not confirmed by Arirang News, indicate the North Korean regime is reacting to the latest mass defection by shutting down half of its overseas restaurants. This comes as more details emerge about their escape unseen in recent years. Risky journey south, Kwon Jang-ho has more.
North Korea is responding to last week's mass defection of 13 people from a restaurant in China by planning to shut down many of its state-run restaurants around the world. According to South Korea's Yonhap news agency, via a source close to the regime, more than half the restaurants in China alone are in the process of closing its doors. There are believed to be about 130 or so restaurants in 12 countries, mostly in China and Southeast Asia. They are estimated to earn the regime about $10 million a year, but recent sanctions imposed by the UN and South Korea are said to have drastically reduced the number of customers, putting pressure on the staff to make up for lost revenue themselves. The defectors reportedly left a restaurant in Ningbo, China, then flew to Bangkok via Kuala Lumpur, where they received assistance from the South Korean government before flying to Seoul. They dressed up as South Korean tourists to try and avoid attention. Due to diplomatic issues and the risk of having the identities of the defectors revealed to the North Korean government, South Korea's Unification Ministry has refused to corroborate the details of their escape and stressed the defectors initiated the escape themselves. China's authorities also confirmed for the first time on Monday that the defectors were able to leave China using North Korean passports. Overseas restaurant jobs are legal work for elite women in North Korea, and the workers are provided with rare passports. They are normally kept under strict control by a minder, but it seems this time the minder defected with them. Most of the tens of thousands of North Korean workers in China are illegal and usually attempt much more difficult and dangerous escapes. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Global efforts to rid the world of nuclear weapons are made more complex by North Korea's repeated provocations, among other factors, is what the ministers of the group of 7 countries declared as they met in the Japanese city of Hiroshima for their annual meeting. They also singled out North Korea for sharp criticism over that regime's latest nuclear and missile tests. Kwon So-ah files this report.
As G7 ministers made a commitment to seek a safer world for everyone through nuclear disarmament on Monday, the second day of their 2-day meeting in Hiroshima, they condemned those making the task harder. In a joint statement called the Hiroshima Declaration on Nuclear Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, the group of 7 industrialized countries, the US, the UK, Germany, France, Canada, Italy, and Japan, said creating a world without nuclear weapons is made more complex by the deteriorating security environment in countries like Syria, the Ukraine, and especially by North Korea's continuous provocations. They also slammed North Korea in the strongest terms for its 4th nuclear test in January and the string of missile launches conducted in the following months. Earlier in their first session on Sunday, the top diplomats agreed to work as a united front in dealing with the North's continued threats against the international community and also criticized its human rights abuses, demanding a concrete response from the regime.
South Korea will hold vice minister-level talks in Seoul next week with 2 of the G7 member states, the US and Japan. Seoul's foreign ministry said Monday the focus will most likely be on trilateral cooperation to denuclearize North Korea and the thorough implementation of sanctions against the regime. Also stressed at the South Korea-US-Japan trilateral summit meeting in Washington last month. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea's general election is now less than 2 days away. Millions of Koreans will head to the polls on Wednesday in what's expected to be one of the most hotly contested elections in years, particularly in Seoul and its surrounding areas. Our Shin Se-min has the latest from the campaign trail.
Little less than 36 hours until polling stations open for the 2016 general election, and with the clock ticking, the parties are still unsure how a number of key battlegrounds will vote. Over half of the 122 electoral districts up for grabs in the Seoul metropolitan area and other cities around the country are too close to call. Despite this, parties have revealed how many National Assembly seats they expect to win. The ruling Century Party says it expects to win around 145 seats, falling just short of a majority in the 300-seat assembly. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea said it might end up winning fewer than 100 seats. The minor opposition People's Party predicts it'll grab 35 seats. After full-fledged campaigning throughout the weekend, party leaders continue to step up efforts ahead of Wednesday's vote. Chairman of the ruling Century Party Kim Moo-sung stumped for his party's candidates in the southeastern cities of Ulsan and Busan in a bid to solidify support in the party's home ground. The Minju Party of Korea's leadership strolled the streets of tightly contested districts in Gyeonggi-do province and also visited the southernmost resort island of Jeju, asking the public to support the party and block the ruling camp from overrunning parliament. The splinter People's Party's co-chair An Chol-soo also engaged voters in the capital region and Incheon, asking for a chance to overhaul the 20th National Assembly. Not only are the political parties gathering support, but they're also encouraging eligible voters to show up at polling stations, as the so-called hidden votes, or those that did not participate in public opinion polls, may yield unexpected results at the polls on April 13th. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Well, this year's general election is gaining more spotlight because it's not only a battle to secure seats in the National Assembly for the next 4 years, it's also a litmus test for next year's big one, the presidential election in December 2017. For more on who could be running, we turn to Kim Young-gil.
The three presidential hopefuls are Kim Moo-sung, head of the ruling Saenuri Party, Moon Jae-in, the former leader of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea, and An Cheol-soo, who left the Minju Party to create the splinter People's Party. A poll conducted by Real Meter on April 4th to 6th showed Moon Jae-in was in the lead with 20%, followed by An Cheol-soo at 14.2% and Kim Moo-sung at 14.1%. Among the three potential candidates for the presidency, two will be running in the April parliamentary race, Kim Moo-sung representing the Chung-ang-yeongdo districts in Busan and An representing Seoul's Nowon-si district. Kim Moo-sung is looking to prove his leadership mettle by guiding his party to a majority of seats and mending the deep factional rift within the party that came to a head last month over the candidate selection process. Moon Jae-in's goal is to help the Minju Party gain victory and secure a strong presence in parliament to solidify his image as a competent presidential candidate. However, Moon said he would abandon his presidential ambitions and his political career if he fails to garner support from the liberal stronghold of Jeollado province. Moon resigned from his post as chairman earlier this year after the Minju Party became embroiled in a high-profile internal feud. For An, his newly launched party must realize his promise of securing 40 seats and also win the Nowon-si district, where he is looking to fend off rivals, especially the Saenuri's political rookie Lee Jun-seok. The three political heavyweights are hitting this year's campaign trail with considerable vigor, as the performance of their parties in the April 13th contest will be crucial to their political ambitions for the future. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
So with only 2 days left until Election Day, campaigning is near complete. It's now all up to the voters. But with so many candidates in the running, it can be tough to narrow down your choices, especially if you don't have particularly strong affiliations to a certain party. But no need to worry. Our Park Ji-won has some tips that could help you make wise choices when you're at the polling stations on Wednesday.
Nearly 1,000 candidates are running in this year's election in 253 districts nationwide. With so many candidates to choose from, it may be difficult to judge the qualified from the rest. There are some things to look out for when trying to decide who gets your vote. Experts advise voters to beware of candidates who make unrealistic pledges or just make too many pledges altogether. Candidates who are more focused on slandering their competition than outlining their own policies could also be bad news. Candidates with questionable tax histories and unclear military records may also merit additional consideration. Voters also need to be wary of incumbent lawmakers with poor legislative records. Some of this information is available on the National Election Commission website or in the election package delivered to voters by mail. Voters can also access a detailed accounting of each candidate's campaign expenses online. And those who want to see their district candidates in a debate can go to the National Election Broadcasting Debate Commission website, which is currently offering free access to the debates online. Unlike the nominees for high-ranking positions who have to undergo intensive confirmation hearings to win appointment, the candidates running for parliament don't get nearly the same amount of scrutiny. So the full consideration of each voter is a must, as the elections are the only way to avoid a bad hire. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Election campaigns are loud, colorful affairs in Korea. Imagine catchy slogans on banners waving in the streets, addictive songs blaring through the speakers. Now, these events, however, are often little more than spectacle for the foreign population living here with no voting rights in neither the general nor the presidential elections. However, as the number of foreign residents increase by the year, so do their needs and concerns. So, how can foreigners living in Korea have their voice heard? Our news feature tonight with Oh Soo-young.
10 years ago, Korea became the first Asian country to grant foreign residents the right to vote in local elections, 3 years after acquiring a permanent resident status. Only naturalised citizens are eligible to vote in general and presidential elections. Compared to most other developed countries like the United States or Japan, which prohibit foreigners from all elections, Korea's electoral system is considered to be more open.
Koreans, I think, have been at some significant success in opening up and welcoming people of different backgrounds and ethnicities. I would contrast this with Japan, where Japan still has a very, very tight immigration policy and does not allow foreigners to migrate to Japan on a permanent basis.
Over the last few years, the number of foreign residents has grown steadily, exceeding the 1.7 million mark last year. That's 3.4% of the entire population. With the unprecedented increase in long-term residents and workers, many feel their needs have not been taken into consideration. This is especially true for areas in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, where almost 10% of its residents are foreign nationals. Seoul's Yeongdeung-pogu district has the largest ratio of foreign residents, at 17.5%, followed by the Kumcheonggu, Gurogu districts and Ansan City in Gyeonggi-do province. A number of ethnic groups have set up their own communities to discuss and resolve their needs.
We're now a sizable part of the population and have many concerns. When there are unfavorable laws or policies, we join with civic groups to protest. We consult migrant laborers, raise funds for those with health problems, and also engage in volunteer work.
There are more than 60 groups for Korean Chinese nationals, groups for elderly people, maternal support, volunteer work and more. There are around 100,000 of us who have acquired Korean citizenship, and our aim is to be able to have stability. We think that, as Koreans, it's our responsibility to participate in national politics.
However, without established political entry points, these foreign communities struggle to have their voices heard.
There's a limit to what we can do on our own, and always asking civil groups for help puts us at a disadvantage. We need representation to make our concerns known and push for relevant policies. There are hundreds of lawmakers, but none speak for us.
It will also require foreign residents to exert efforts themselves. A clear majority of the foreign population choose to forego their right to vote. The turnout rate for foreign residents stood at just 18% in 2014's local elections.
Various policies related to work, multicultural families, and immigration all pass through the National Assembly. Unless foreign residents take an interest in elections and exercise their right to vote, there will be little motive for politicians to consider their needs regarding policies.
Above all, the greater public must offer a welcoming hand to the newly settling residents.
It's paramount for Korean-born citizens to begin considering foreign residents as neighbors and help them become involved in the political arena. Also, naturalized Korean citizens should actively help foreign nationals without voting rights to be included in the greater society and also contribute towards social prosperity.
To fully embrace the growing foreign population, the key challenge here is to encourage both participation and inclusion from all social sectors. And it begins with showing an interest. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Food, a TV series, art pieces. It's the soft power that can cross borders and spread influence around the world. Not only are cultural contents key to diplomacy, they are the new growth engine for the Korean economy, stresses President Park Geun-hye. Our top office correspondent Song Ji-sun takes us to the K-Style Hub in the Culture Creation Venture Complex in Seoul, where the Korean leader enjoyed various activities herself, along with arguably the most popular Korean actor overseas these days. Take a look.
Foreign tourists interested in trying their hand at cooking Korean food can now do so at a special center in downtown Seoul. Located in the capital's creative culture complex, tourists can taste and experience the culture of Hansik at the so-called K-Style Hub. Actors Hong Joong-gi, who starred in a recent TV drama that was exported to over 30 countries, accompanied President Park on a tour of the newly launched Hallyu Center as a goodwill ambassador for tourism.
한식에 대해서 관심을 다른 차원에서 많이 갖게 될 것 같아요. 이렇게 직접 해보면.
기억에도 또 오래 남고요.
저 기억에 많이.
The building, originally home to culture startups, also functions as a platform for exporting contents born here, and tourists can buy locally made culture goods at an art market and get all the tourist information they need. Attending the opening, President Park Geun-hye said everyone should be able to experience and enjoy culture and arts, and that Korea should realize a creative economy by focusing on its own traditional assets.
문화가 산업 활성화의 돌파구가 되고 산업의 문화를 접목해서 경제의 외연을 확대하는 선순환 구조를 구축해야 합니다.
The president reiterated that culture will drive future growth, adding that everyone should be proud of their Korean heritage, especially the traditional values, and foster those assets into growth engines. 송지선, Arirang News.
Less than a week since its local rival Samsung Electronics released their first quarter preliminary earnings, LG Electronics has unveiled its report card for the same period. Well, the numbers, not as dramatic as that of Samsung, but nonetheless a pleasant surprise. So, will the momentum continue? Our Kim Min-ji finds out.
It was a better-than-expected report card for LG Electronics in the first quarter of this year. According to the company's earnings guidance, operating profit came to roughly $440 million in the January to March period, up over 65% from a year ago. Sales came to $11.6 billion, down 4.5% from last year. The operating profit estimate beats the market consensus of about $370 million. Analysts attribute the uptick in earnings to favorable foreign currency conditions, as well as strong sales of home appliances and premium televisions. LG is also expected to have benefited from falling panel prices. The mobile arm, however, likely posted an operating loss in the first quarter due to seasonal factors, and on top of that, it did not have a flagship model. But analysts are hopeful that the mobile business will do better in the second quarter on the back of strong sales of its new G5 smartphone released late last month. First-day sales hit 15,000 in Korea, triple that of its predecessor.
The early popularity of the G5 will likely help LG turn a profit in its mobile business in the second quarter of this year. Sales are predicted to reach about 70 to 80 million this year, similar to the G3 model, which was considered a success.
It's the first time that LG announced its earnings guidance for quarterly profits. The company's finalized earnings, which will include a breakdown by sector, will be announced later this month. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, Celltrion, now one of South Korea's most well-known pharmaceutical companies, has successfully entered the U.S. market. Now, it received a FDA stamp of approval for its latest drug. So just how significant is this leap for the Korean biohealth industry? Lee Eun-shin explains.
Last Wednesday, Korean pharmaceutical firm Celltrion received the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approval for sale. South Korea's very first biosimilar successfully entering the U.S. market is significant for many reasons. One of the most important being that as of 2010, the U.S. accounted for about 46% of the global biologics market, according to Forbes magazine. The company's biosimilar Remsima, developed to treat patients with autoimmune diseases, is expected to bring in $2 billion annually from the American market alone. So what exactly are the advantages of biosimilars compared to other biologics and chemical drugs that the mass market has been familiar with so far, and how are they so marketable? It's widely known that due to the complicated process of development, biologics cost more to produce than chemical drugs. But what makes biosimilars so appealing is that they could be as inexpensive as common medicines.
The biggest advantage of biosimilars are its affordability, and along with that, though it's called biosimilar because it's supposed to be almost identical to the pre-existing medications, it's safe to expect they are just as effective as the originals.
In a way, biosimilars are generics of biologics in terms of affordability, and South Korea is trying to catch up with the global market and potentially get ahead.
The country's getting closer, step by step, to becoming a biohealth industry giant. The country's biotechnology is showing speedy development.
이은신, Arirang News.
More unsettling discovery related to the Zika virus. Researchers in Brazil believe there may be a connection between the Zika virus and a brain disease in adults. This latest discovery adds to the growing list of possible neurological damage associated with the mosquito-borne virus and is stoking fears over how far the current outbreak will evolve. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Scientists at Restoration Hospital in Recife, Brazil, have discovered a new Zika-linked brain disorder in adults. It is an autoimmune syndrome called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis, or ADEM for short, and causes swelling of the brain and spinal cord. This new finding adds to the long list of neurological damage the Zika virus causes, including other autoimmune disorders like Guillain-Barré syndrome and birth defects. Scientists in Brazil also say they have conclusively proven through experiments the long-suspected link that Zika causes microcephaly in babies, defined by abnormally small heads and sometimes developmental problems. In a separate study by the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, researchers show what could happen when neural stem cells are infected by the Zika virus. In less than a week, exposed neurospheres were found to have abnormalities or were killed off, while further tests show the virus reduced the growth of infected organoids by 40% compared to the control group. The scientists believe their findings corroborates the surge of microcephaly in Brazil in recent months. The country has confirmed more than 940 cases of Zika-linked microcephaly since the outbreak started last May. It's still investigating nearly 4,300 additional suspected cases. Another study of 5,000 pregnant women, mostly from Colombia, due to give birth in May and June, is also expected to help solidify the connection between Zika and the birth defect. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
It's been about a week since the publication of biggest data leak in history shocked the world, but the case is far from being resolved. New findings show the law firm at the center of the Panama offshore account scandal routinely usurped the name of the Red Cross and other charities to help hide the origins of millions of dollars in questionable funds. Exactly how? Our Hwang Ho-jun has the story.
The founders of the secretive law firm at the center of the Panama Papers saga continue to claim that they too are victims of one of the biggest data leaks in history. But they face a mounting pile of evidence against them, as revealed in their own files, which outline years of deceit and bending the rules.
New news should be, who is investigating the hack? We are amazed that nobody said, hey, a crime has been committed here.
According to the Le Mouton Dimanche, a Swiss newspaper that has partnered with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, Mossack Fonseca usurped the name of the International Committee of the Red Cross and listed it as a beneficiary of two shell foundations. It was allegedly allowed under the legal loophole without the organization's knowledge. The Panamanian law firm also apparently established the fake Brotherhood Foundation and Faith Foundation and offered them to clients as an asset-holding body. Responding to the Swiss paper's report on Sunday, the Red Cross denied any ties with Mossack Fonseca and rebuked the unauthorized use of the organization's name, saying it poses enormous risks for its operations.
If indeed the name of our organization has been misused in any way, then we thoroughly condemn it. Such abuse could have an impact on our activities and security in the field, so we take this issue extremely seriously.
The organization said the humanitarian institution works in war zones and conflict areas, where the security of its staff is partly guaranteed because of what their emblem represents: neutrality, independence, and integrity, which could be threatened if it was perceived as receiving money from questionable sources. Other charities, such as the World Wildlife Foundation, were secretly used by Mossack Fonseca. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
The The frontrunner in Peru's presidential election is heading for a runoff after failing to win a majority in the first round voting. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me. Now, Bruce, Popular Force Party leader Keiko Fujimori won the day, but not the presidency.
Not yet, Kanyang. The votes are still being tallied from the first round, but what we're seeing is that she's going to fall short of the majority needed to avoid that runoff. So that'll come in June. The likely runner-up is going to be Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. He's a former World Bank economist. He and Fujimori are both center-right politicians, and it's expected to be a tight runoff. Her campaign has been hurt by the legacy of her father, imprisoned former President Alberto Fujimori, and a fatal attack on Saturday by the country's Maoist rebel group likely stirred memories of his time in office.
And if we reach government, we'll return that peace and tranquility that was interrupted yesterday in an area of the VRAE in Santo Domingo in Acobamba.
Though Alberto Fujimori is credited with cracking down on the insurgency, he's also criticized for his brutal suppression tactics. Peruvians are choosing the successor to current President Ollanta. Their country of 30 million is on track to become the world's #2 copper producer, but rising crime is a major concern for voters, and many question why poverty persists amid vast mineral wealth. Police in India are blaming the managers of a temple for a fire there that killed more than 100 people and injured hundreds of others. The police say management held an illegal fireworks display that led to the fatal blaze.
That is correct. We have denied the permission for this fire display, open display this time. That is fact.
Thousands of people were gathered at the temple in southern India on Sunday for a pyrotechnic show to mark the start of the Hindu year. The firework ignited a shed of stored fireworks, sparking a string of powerful explosions and causing one building to collapse.
Now, Bruce, this is one of the worst accidents in a religious festival. Now, is a tragedy expected to lead to greater oversight?
Some people are already demanding that fireworks events like this be banned in that region, but there's an issue, and that's power, because a lot of the trusts that manage these temples are very rich and powerful, and they have a history of flaunting the laws in this state. So we'll just have to see as the investigation continues.
All right, Bruce, thanks so much for that coverage.
No problem.
Time now to get a check on the weather conditions. For that, let's head straight over to our weather center. Our Lee Ji-hyun is standing by. Ji-hyun, all I remember from the weekend is that it was very dusty.
It surely was so dusty. In fact, many people who were out at Yeouido Park last Saturday to check out the flower festival had a hard time even seeing the Hanggang River due to thick layers of heavy smog that was hanging around.
Right, so it wasn't the best of time to check out spring flowers, but it's really a shame because for cherry blossoms, it was the peak bloom over the weekend.
That is so right. Pedestrians should wear a face mask on a dusty day, and drivers should keep their windows up for sure. Also, be sure to remember to change out car air filters every 10,000 kilometers as recommended. But thankfully, the air quality improved today after 3 straight days of a fine dust advisory here in Seoul. Clear blue skies were welcome in most parts, but in the meantime, the Jeollado provinces was still battling dust today, but tomorrow the entire nation should have clean air to breathe in. Partly sunny skies to start out, but it will gradually give way to clouds tomorrow before showers hit nationwide on Wednesday, which is an election day here in the capital, or here in Korea, that is. So have an umbrella handy when you head out to the polls. On that note, let's move on to tomorrow's temperature readings. Daily low here in Seoul and Busan will kick off at 8 degrees Celsius, while Jeju will kick off at 12. And as for the daily highs, Seoul and Gwangju, Jeju will climb up to 21 degrees Celsius, while Daegu and Busan will top out at 20 and 18. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that is our broadcast on this Monday night. I'm Moon Ganyang in Seoul. Thank you as always for staying with us, and we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.